Okay, so I think we can continue. And now I would like to share about the survey data in Thailand and Vietnam. And in this session, I already uploaded all the files, two survey in Thailand and Vietnam, and for two papers. So macroeconomic expectation and consumer sentiment during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the second paper about the effects of fiscal policy on household during the COVID-19 pandemic. So in this, you can see that in one survey, but we have two papers, right? So the same question we mentioned that whether we can combine two different projects in one paper, right? So main idea of this paper is to study the macroeconomic expectation and consumer sentiment during the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is the first side paper. So during that time, we find that there is one potential paper that we can write from this paper, but it's not about the original idea when we start the survey. But in the second way of the survey, when we conduct a follow-up survey, we find that it's potentially we can address one more question from the paper. So that's why we add one more question about fiscal spending during that time. So it's in the follow-up survey so that we can conduct another paper. So the idea for another paper. And why survey data in Thailand and Vietnam? So during that time, we conduct the survey Thailand and Vietnam in 2020. So at the beginning of 2020, and this is exactly the time I just finished my PhD, and I completed my PhD in February 2020, and also chapter in my PhD thesis I use survey data in Germany and in the Netherlands. So I was thinking during this time I finished my PhD, I want to do something for Vietnam, to conduct a survey in Vietnam. So that's why I'm thinking about, I was thinking about Vietnam. But when I talked with some of my colleagues, they said that Vietnam should be interesting, but maybe we can conduct one more countries in the region like Thailand, for example, so that we have something comparable between Thailand and Vietnam, and also to confirm the result for Thailand and Vietnam, because in the literature so far they just focus on the survey in advanced economy like the US or in the Europe, but the data in developing countries is very much limited. So that's why our paper could be some kind of potential interest for the academic community. So that's why we survey both for Thailand and Vietnam. And the thing is that you can see that both papers here during the COVID-19 pandemic, but when I finished my PhD in February 2020, there no COVID, no pandemic at that time. But when I finished my PhD, I fly back to Vietnam just to tell my parents that I already finished my PhD. And then the COVID happened, and the COVID pandemic happened, so I had to book another flight to fly back to Germany as soon as possible before the Germany closed their border. And on the flight, I thinking about maybe we can study something about the impact of COVID pandemic on the formation of inflation expectation, or because all my research so far focus on inflation expectation. So that's why we think about a project about the COVID pandemic, the pandemic on the formation of inflation expectation. So that's why that was also conducted very fast, and in May 2020, we already have a questionnaire and some research idea to study the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on how the people they form macro expectations. Okay, so that is the idea of the project. In this folder, I already upload both the slide and also the paper publication and the data and the blue file, so that you can get access to the data and also how to use the blue file to replicate the result in the paper. So today, in this morning, this afternoon, we will look at the paper about the sentiment here, and maybe next week if we have time, I will tell more about the fiscal policy paper. And this afternoon we just look at the data about macro expectation and also sensitivity to COVID-19 pandemic. Because this paper we use a survey experiment. So here in this folder you can see that we already have the data, data and blue file in the paper in the slide. And now let's look at the paper here. So the macro expectation and the personal segment unit COVID-19 pandemic and the role of transmission. And this work is joined with Zhu is my wife. During the time she was a student at the University of Marburg. And Ben Taylor is her supervisor, so my wife's supervisor. And me and my co-administrator both from the Leibniz University in Hannover. And we joined together working on this topic because Ben Taylor he also interested in survey experiment and survey data at this time. And this is the first project we and my co-administrator worked on the survey experiment. So before that, we just use a survey cross-sectional survey data without any experiment. So this is a new project for us to learn about how to run survey experiment. So the first time we conduct survey experiment by ourselves. And this is very interesting, and we learn through doing. So a lot of mistakes with the survey data as well, and also mistakes with the survey with experiment. And I'm so sorry, but the mistake we have at this point and how we solve it and learn from that is a steep learning curve for me. This time we learn about how to conduct survey experiment. So it's just by learning by doing. So the idea for this paper is that during the COVID-19 pandemic, with a lot of economic uncertainty and many shocks happening at the same time, it leads to the uncertainty about the future economic conditions and both demand shock and the supply shock caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, especially at the very beginning of the pandemic in March or in May 2020. So, and many governments implement massive policy to address the negative effects of the pandemic. And uncertain times like this, like the COVID-19 pandemic, it's the beginning of the pandemic, but difficult for consumers to form economic expectations, right? Because the many driver, many shock, it happened at one time, and even professional forecasters, they also don't know what will happen with the future economic condition. So it's very difficult for household to form expectation in the future, right? And if we look at the data this morning, when we see that this time of at the beginning of the pandemic, the dispersion of how people form expectation also larger. Between people that go very differently, so that is a very dispersed expectation during just time. And now we look at only one specific aspect of the COVID-19 pandemic is during just time because it's a new experience to all countries and all researchers, so they have some cross-country rating about the appropriateness of the government's response to and public response to the pandemic. So whether the government do a good job or not to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, and they also have ranking across countries in the world. Which country is best in terms of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, and which country or which government is a very bad job regarding to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. And we want to see whether such kind of information is important for the household to form macroeconomic conditions, right? Because we can expect that if the government doing a good job to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, they might more optimistic about the future economic condition compared with the government who did a bad job about the macroeconomic, about the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we want to see where the providing the survey or the ranking from the countries levels on the Apple things of the survey here matters for the individual unit and formulation about macroeconomic condition. So why this study for Thailand and Vietnam because these countries or emerging countries in the same region and both countries are ruled by military entities. For example, in Kazakhstan, the Thai is governed by the military body, and in Vietnam we have only one party, so that's why we call that the military entities. And but the difference regarding to the political system is that the political unrest in Thailand was heavily in Vietnam. And during this time we conduct the survey, there's significantly more COVID-19 cases in Thailand than in Vietnam. So at the very beginning of the pandemic, the Vietnamese government doing quite a good job in terms of to reduce the case, COVID case-19.
I remember that period vividly because it was January 2020.
Yeah, it only in the 2020.
Yes. This was the only time that the COVID cases in Thailand were more significant than Vietnam. Because the first 3 months of 2020, we fought against the pandemic very well.
So exactly so. But this time we conduct only in the first 3 months of the pandemic. So during this time, Vietnam is one of the best countries in the world to control the number of cases in the COVID state. So that makes difference. And just because the study here we conducted in May 2020, so it was at that time.
Yes, maybe because it was just a few months before I entered college. So I remember really well.
Exactly. So that's a very good point, and exactly during that time we conducted survey at the very beginning of the pandemic.
Yes.
So that we still can see the impact of the policy during that time.
Yes, really interesting.
Really interesting. Exactly. And here is the information treatment we provide we have 2 treatment groups about the beliefs of others. So the treatment here is about the government reaction. And here we saw the graph here is adjustment by the countries about the response of their government to COVID-19 pandemic. And here is share people, they say that the government doing a bad job, and here is share of people, they say that the government doing a good job to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. And they rank all the countries here from the lowest to the highest. And Thailand here is one of the worst countries in the world at that time. In May 2020, about how can deal with COVID-19 pandemic. And Vietnam is here, so it's one of the best countries in the world during that time to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's a synergy in function between the Thailand and Vietnam. And then we're going to see whether the Thai people, when they see this picture, they become more pessimistic about macro conditions compared with the Vietnamese. They see that both government doing a very good job in terms of controlling COVID-19 pandemic, right? And first we saw the graph here with some subset of the samples, and then we also have some text to explain that. So they say that many Thai believe that the government response to return, and the global survey pointed out that about 8 out of 10 Thai surveys said that the government has not really sufficient measures to control the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. And among 45 countries, Thailand has the highest share of respondents who believe where government respond to return. And for Vietnam survey, we saw that many Vietnamese believe that Saigon is visible appropriately. And a global survey went out that about 6 out of 10 Vietnamese said that the government has implemented appropriate measures to control the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. And among 45 countries, Vietnam has the highest share of respondents who believe that these rules appropriately. So it is two different information, right? One is very pessimistic and one is very optimistic. And when we want to see whether some kind of information here is important for people to form expectation between the Thai and Vietnam survey. And here is the second treatment. It's about the first one is about the climate reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the second set of the information is about the public reaction, how the people in the community react to COVID-19 pandemic. And here is the share of respondents who said that the public reaction is insufficient. And both Thailand and Vietnam are quite similar. So synergic cross-country activities rating of the general public reaction to COVID-19 pandemic from non-survey to non-survey, they also have rating. And both the picture of Thailand and Vietnam, and roughly about 50% of the Thai people, they say that the public or the community reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic is insufficient. And for Vietnam, it's around also 50 to 60%. Also for that, the community reaction is not enough. So it's quite similar. So in this picture, it's quite similar. So, but for China, it's again, the people with only few people within the community is insufficient. And for India, with almost 100% of the respondents, they say that the community reaction to COVID-19 is insufficient. So China is the best, and India is worst, and Thailand and Vietnam is somewhere in the middle. And we also have a facts here to explain the facts, and about half of Thai said that the public reaction in their country is insufficient, and for Vietnam survey, about 6 out of 10 Vietnamese said that the public reaction in the country is insufficient. Okay? Yeah. And now we, after go by the informative treatment, we have some questions to measure consumer sentiment index. And the consumer sentiment index is based on the Michigan survey approach. That is a survey we already discussed. And they have 5 questions to measure consumer sentiment index based on the household financial situation in the last 12 months, expectation of financial situation in the next 12 months, and expected national economic condition in the next 12 months, and expected national economic situation of the next 5 years. And current very little to spend on durable things. Right now, it's good time to spend on durable things. And then we will sum after answer of these 5 questions, then we have an impact of consumer sentiment. Okay? So it's a standard way to measure consumer sentiment impact on the survey impact. So here is outcome variables. And in this survey, we don't have the before and after the treatment. We just act as the after the treatment only. So that is not good strategy, but it's still okay. Yeah. So in this case, we have to assume that before the treatment, everyone has the same consumer sentiment and impact after the treatment. So we ask this question only after the treatment. So the first version of doing survey experiment that is very simple and without prior and posterior belief, but only posterior belief. It's still okay to study some cause effect, but it's not very clean like the before and after the treatment. But in the first version, it's how we learn survey experiment. we conduct an online survey in Thailand and Vietnam. And at that time, we conducted the CMOZ.com from system company. And yeah, at that time, this is only one country, or no, only one survey company that conducts survey data in the, or that's one of the few survey company conducted survey online in Vietnam. At that time, we also connect with the Nelson Survey Company at that time. We also provide some services in Vietnam as well, but it's very, very expensive. As I said, our funding is not enough to work with the Nelson Survey Company, so we work with the One System Company, and it still work well, both for Thailand and Vietnam. And we conducted a survey in May 2020, and 6 months later, in December 2020, we also conduct follow-up survey, and we conduct the survey. We are also trying to find practices and regarding to education and the share people living in urban area. But because at the time when we conduct survey online in Vietnam, our survey is dominated by the young and the high educated people and the people in the urban area compared with the rural area. But we know that in Vietnam, the share of people living in the rural area actually is very large. And the education levels here also just about, I think about 20% or so, they have a college degree. But the share of people in our survey data, there are more than 40% they have a college degree, so it's very far from the representative sample of the population, of the Vietnamese population. So at that time, we have to contract the population weight, so that we can match the survey data here with the actual population. And it's also a good way, but it's not a perfect way. Like in advanced economy, the sample is large, so that they can match the survey panel with the true population. But in developing countries like Vietnam, it's very difficult to do so. And especially in Vietnam, we also have rural area and urban areas and different levels of education. So, and online survey, we know that is most likely for those with high educated, high income, not high income, but high educated and the young, especially the young people. So, yeah, we do, and we have to contract the population. We try to match our survey data close to the population distribution, but it's close to perfect, but it's not perfect. But then I also learned that to conduct survey in Vietnam, if we focus on some specific group, like the young, for example, it becomes very good survey. For example, we want to study about the impact of macroeconomic condition on how the young people they behave. That could be very good data. Yeah, because we just focus on a subset of population, and it turned out to be a good strategy. So we have to know what is the limitation, what is the advantage and disadvantage of different type of data sets or population that we can aim for the whole population or the subset of population. Yeah, and now we go directly to the causal effects of the information treatment. So here is a U, that is an unemployment expectation. And YE is an economic growth expectation, and there's consumer sentiment index, and the Gamma reaction, that is the rating of the people about whether the countries, the Gamma work doing a good job or bad job for Vietnam and Thailand, and the public reaction information. And we find that for Vietnam data, if the people they visit the Gamma reaction function, they have a lower unemployment rate expectation, so it means that they're more optimistic about the future economic condition. And also, they also have significant effect on the positive impact on the economic growth expectation. But the magnitude of the effect here is small, so with 3%, 3 percentage points, they are more likely to think that the unemployment rate will be lower. And 3 percentage points more likely that the economic growth will be higher. But for Thailand, we do not find any significant effect. And for consumer sentiment here, we also do not find the significant effect on consumer sentiment, just on the unemployment expectation and economic growth expectation. And now, the more interesting things that we study in this paper is that how it links with the heterogeneity regarding to how people think that the government doing a good job about the economic policy. And that's the question we ask before we provide the information. We ask people, everyone, that what do you think about the government economic policy to deal with the economic growth and inflation? So that is two objectives of government policy. And the people can answer that the government doing a good job, or fair job, or poor job. Okay? And now the thing is that, for example, here is for Vietnamese survey, and the impact here is on consumer sentiment. And now we can see that I think here shouldn't effect on unemployment expectation. So in unemployment expectation, those who think that the government put a poor job in economic policy, if they receive the information we provide about the government doing a good job, but actually they reduce the unemployment expectation a lot compared to those who think that the government already doing a good job, because it's a surprising information for those who have right belief that the government currently doing a poor job, right? Because they already at the beginning of the survey, they think that the government did a very poor job regarding economic policy, but then they receive the information that the government, especially for Vietnamese government, that the government actually is rating is very high in the survey compared with other countries, so that they actually they revise the expectations a lot about the future economic condition, right? Unemployment expectation for this group is reduced a lot. But for the Thai sample, for example, it turn out also to be opposite. For example, in this case, we do not find any effect from the Thai sample, right? But for those people who think that the government doing a good job in economic policy, now they receive the information that actually the government doing a very bad job about the COVID-19 benefit. They shocked about that, and they revise the expectation about unemployment is significantly and goes up. So it means that this shocking information or surprising information, it really changes people's belief about the future economic condition. So that's why we mentioned that if the information is a kind of new information or shocking information from people, they actually they update their belief. But if the information is consistent with what they are thinking, so that they are not so much updating in the belief. And the same thing for economic expectation and for consumer sentiment as well. We find the significant effect when the information is different from the people believe before. Yeah. So we look at the heterogeneity regarding to how people think about government economic policy. So some highlights about our results here. We conducted a new online survey of consumers in Thailand and Vietnam, and we find that the information with the government reaction and public reaction to the COVID-19 benefit from the global survey, and we find that the general effect was significant in Vietnam, but only comes from those who think that the best job, but if they visit the global survey about rating of the government policy, now to be very high and one of the top in the world, so that they update the unit much more compared with those who do that government do a good job. The same thing for the Thailand case. If someone they think that the government do a very good job in economic policy, but they visit the news that the government actually doing a bad job regarding to COVID-19 pandemic, they also revise their expectations about economic conditions and unemployment and even similarly. So that is contribution of the paper to the literature. And when we submit this paper to the journal, we also got some positive comment from the referee. That is, they said that this is new survey data, and everything we learned so far in the literature is mainly from advanced economy, and they highly appreciate about the studies that we conduct for Thailand and Vietnam, for countries that is very the results or the finding is very new for the literature, and the survey is also new in the literature. So that's why the paper got accepted as a very good journal as well.
The role not taken.
Yeah. And even up to now, the survey data about expectation in developing countries still quite limited as well. But in advanced economy, now many central banks in advanced economy, they already survey expectation. But for Vietnam, now still there are no survey about the consumer expectation at all. So that's why when we conduct the survey, we get some positive comment for that. Yeah. So sometimes looking for Vietnam is also important.
I also want to do. I have an idea about the thesis, my thesis for Vietnam, but I just consider about the data, and it's really hard to find and need to do many things to get to solve the data before regression. Yeah, don't have the meaningful and not the suitable, reliable and suitable for to apply. We need to collect many sources and plug them together in the positive possible way, and still keep them reliable to run regression. That is really hard for data in Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly. So during my PhD, I have no interest working with survey data in Vietnam, because I think at the time it's better for me to use some data from advanced countries because data is available and quality of the data is good. And in the literature, they already accept some kind of data already because it's well-known data. And people who are the referee report, they also more familiar with advanced country. So that's why the paper is more likely to be accepted. But once I finish my PhD, when we have more time, we can conduct survey data in Vietnam and Thailand, but we do it by ourselves. So that is also increase the chance that the paper got accepted. Yeah, so we have to think carefully about which data sets we want to use for our thesis or for our paper. We always have some check-off. But also, I think it could be hard for you here as a master student to work with some African survey data, because we also need to understand about the culture and the data and how people in that country they behave like that, or economic policy at that country. So that's why at the very beginning or now most of my work when I work on German data or European central bank country, I work with co-author the German the economics and the National Bank of the ECB system, for example, so that we can cooperate. I can talk about the idea and how to work with data. But my co-author will help me to get them to understand the culture of people and maybe some economic policy in that country that we can know about that, right? Because they talk about the local language and a lot of political issues in that country as well, but we need to know sufficiently, right? Because also economic variables here, we know that it depends on the public discussion about the economic policy. So if we work for the data in Vietnam, for example, we maybe know about what happens in the economic policy, for example. So we are more confident when we work with our Vietnamese data. But at the same time, as you said, in Vietnam, it was challenging when we collect data. And the quality of data all the way to question, right? Questionable. So yeah, but it takes some time to
Study first,
study first and
apply later.
yeah. But it's possible.
Yeah.
We will find a way to solve it. And as economists, we always work with noisy data.
Yeah.
It's a difference between economics and natural science. So in the natural science like physics or mathematics or chemistry, they work with precise data and very high quality data without any noise. But economics is a profession working with noisy data with a lot of error and random. But we are expert in working with noisy data. That is something different. And we have to get used to with that. So we learn from that. And, but actually people behavior is difficult to predict. So that's why we use some data to understand how people think. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So any question about the data or the survey? There's a second paper about fiscal policy. Maybe I talk very briefly. So in this paper we have one question to because the survey here conducted and the second survey, the follow-up survey, we conducted in December 2020. And now it's after 6 months of the pandemic, or 9 months of the pandemic, and many governments in the world, they have some cash transfer to the household. They have impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and Vietnam, the government also provide some financial support for the household who impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, such as poor jobs or family have some people get used because of COVID-19 pandemic. And then we want to see when people they receive some government support, financial support, they change they are more willing to or more optimistic about the future economic condition. Yeah, because the fiscal policy they use the fiscal the cash transfer to buy durable things, or they're more optimistic about the future economic condition. They trust the government more or not. That is a research question. So in that survey, we just add one more question in the follow-up survey. Did you or your family member get some financial support from the government because of the COVID-19 pandemic? And about 40% or 50% of the sample they said that yes, our family received some financial support from the government. And in the Thai sample also about 60% of the household they set up the family, their family received some financial support from the government because of COVID-19 pandemic. And in both countries we find that the household they received some financial support from the government because of COVID-19 pandemic. They more optimistic about the future economic condition, macroeconomic condition, and they more likely to state that over the past 3 months or past 5 months they buy durable things like major things like TV or microwaves or something like that. And this is signals about the good policy that fiscal policy or cash transfer can help the people to increase their spending and to support the economy and the channels here. It comes from the increase in the macroeconomic expectation, more optimistic about the future economy, and they trust the government more as well. So that is the key contribution of the paper to the literature. And this is it's a side paper, so it's not a big idea at the beginning, but it's a very small project, but it's still meaningful at the time. And the referee report, they said that it's a very interesting paper, and they said that it's because it's conducted at the very beginning of the pandemic, and many governments they provide some financial support to the government, but there is no study at the time study about the effect of cash transfer from the pandemic on the household spending or expectation. But we are very fast on that direction. So we are still doing this time of pandemic, but the paper we already have the paper because we conduct the survey at the very beginning of the pandemic, and we have data, we can hand to it very quickly, and then we can the paper is got accepted. So it's timing sometimes also very important. Act fast and act strong. So that is how paper. But nowadays, if we do the same thing again, it's rejected because it's the role of the pioneer. So we have to go fast. At some point, we need to be very fast. But at some point, we like to work on witty. It's a different project with a different state. But if we work on the policy debate, we have to be very fast because different topic can maybe it lasts for 1 month, and the next month it already moves to the next topic, right? Or next year it already another topic. So if the topic of COVID-19 pandemic is only hot during the pandemic, and after the pandemic now is someone provide some evidence about the pandemic, it's maybe not so important to the policy debate anymore. So, but if you provide something very innovative result or method to identify some cause and effect during the COVID-19 pandemic, it's still great. It's still great, but it's very hard to do so. So if you are one of the first people to use the literature, the paper is not perfect. It's because those who are the first one, the paper is not always perfect. It's a lot of mistakes and a lot of crap. But the follower, you also the paper must be perfect, clean. You have to solve all problems in order to topic. But so the difference between the first one and the follower, you still can do the same thing, but the paper needs to be very clean. You have to do some structural models or with very good instrument variable to identify the cause and effect. But the first one maybe does some interesting correlation or this is okay. Okay, so I think could be enough for today, and I'm still here. And if you have any questions about your project,